Kabuto Yakushi's backstory is often regarded as one of the most tragic in Naruto, because it revolves around the complete erasure of his identity. As a young child, Kabuto was found by Nono Yakushi, the head of a Leaf Village orphanage and a former root operative known as the Mother. He had no memory of his real name or parents, so she named him Kabuto, after the helmet he was wearing when he was discovered. Kabuto had poor eyesight, and Nono gave him her own glasses so he could see, an act of kindness that deeply bonded him to her. Wanting to help the orphanage survive financially, he began learning medical ninjutsu at a young age. The situation turned tragic when Danzo Shimura threatened to cut the orphanage's funding unless Nono returned to espionage and one of the children was handed over to become a spy. To protect his mother figure and the other orphans, Kabuto volunteered. Over the years, he operated as a sleeper agent across the 5 great shinobi nations. He became exceptionally skilled at infiltration, but constantly changing identities and wearing masks gradually destroyed his sense of self. The breaking point came during a mission in the village hidden in the stone. Kabuto was attacked by another spy and killed the person in self-defense, only to discover that it was Nono. Horrified, he tried to heal her and told her who he was. But as she lay dying, she looked at him and asked, "Who are you?" That moment shattered him completely. Kabuto later learned that Danzo had orchestrated everything. Danzo wanted both Kabuto and Nono eliminated because they knew too much. For years, he had shown Nono falsified photos of Kabuto growing up, altering his appearance so that when they finally encountered each other on the battlefield, she genuinely could not recognize his real face. Left without a name, a home, or a mother who remembered him, Kabuto was eventually approached by Orochimaru. Orochimaru exploited the emptiness within him, suggesting that if Kabuto did not know who he was, he should simply gather everything in the world, information, DNA, techniques, and add it to himself until he became something. This philosophy led Kabuto to obsess over surpassing Orochimaru. He began injecting himself with the DNA of others in a literal attempt to construct an identity from the pieces of stronger individuals. Because the shinobi system had stripped him of his original self, Kabuto tried to rebuild himself from the fragments of everyone else. Gaara was born in the village hidden in the sand during a period of economic decline. His father, Rasa, wanted to restore the village's military strength by sealing the one-tailed beast, Shukaku, into his unborn son. The ritual required a sacrifice. Gaara's mother, Karura, died during childbirth. Before she passed away, Karura named him Gaara, a name he later understood to mean a demon who loves only himself. For years, he believed this name reflected a curse. However, the true meaning behind her final words remained unknown to him throughout his childhood. As Gaara grew up, he was constantly protected by the Shield of Sand, an automatic defense triggered by Shukaku's power. No one could physically harm him, but he also could not experience something as simple as human touch. The villagers saw him as a monster, and his father treated him like a failed military experiment rather than a son. Despite this, Gaara initially tried to be kind and connect with others. However, his unstable control over Shukaku often caused unintended injuries and deaths, which only deepened his isolation. The only person who showed him affection was his maternal uncle, Yashimaru. Yashimaru taught him about physical and emotional pain and explained that love was the only way to heal a wounded heart. But when Gaara was 6 years old, Rasa decided his son was too dangerous to live and ordered an assassination attempt. The assassin was Yashimaru. After Gaara mortally wounded the masked attacker in self-defense, Yashimaru revealed his identity and delivered devastating words. He claimed that he had always hated Gaara for causing Karura's death, that Karura had never loved him and had cursed the village with her final breath, and that Gaara was completely alone in the world. This betrayal shattered Gaara's mind. In response, he used his sand to carve the kanji for love into his forehead, a dark irony. From that moment on, he chose to love only himself and find purpose in killing others. He became cold and ruthless, feeling alive only when taking the lives of others. This mindset continued until his battle with Naruto Uzumaki during the Chunin exams. Years later, during the Fourth Great Ninja War, Rasa was resurrected through Edo Tensei to fight the allied shinobi forces. He saw Gaara standing as the Kazekage and commander-in-chief of the army. In that moment, Rasa was forced to confront the reality that his son had surpassed him, not as a weapon, but as a leader. During their battle, Gaara's sand took the shape of his mother, Karura, shielding him. This revelation deeply moved Rasa, who finally confessed the truth. The sand protecting Gaara had never been Shukaku's power. It was Karura's will. Her love for her son was so strong that it remained within the sand to guard him long after her death. Rasa also admitted that he had forced Yashimaru to lie. The assassination attempt was meant to test whether Gaara could suppress his emotions and fully control the tailed beast. Yashimaru never hated Gaara. He carried out his role out of loyalty to the Kazekage. Karura had not cursed the village. She loved Gaara deeply and died wishing to protect him. Even the meaning of his name was not a curse encouraging selfishness, but a mother's hope that her son would live, be protected, and rely on his own strength. When Gaara finally learned that he had always been loved by both his mother and his uncle, he cried for the first time in the series without anger or hatred. He forgave his father, and Rasa returned to the afterlife knowing that the child he once considered a failed experiment had become the greatest Kazekage the village had ever known. Haku was born in a small, snowy village in the Land of Water during a time of constant civil war. Many of these conflicts involved shinobi with Kekkei Genkai, hereditary bloodline abilities passed down through specific clans. Because these powers were associated with destruction and instability, ordinary citizens began to fear and resent anyone who possessed them. This fear eventually turned into violent purges, with bloodline users being hunted down and killed. Haku's mother secretly possessed the ice release Kekkei Genkai. She hid it from everyone, including her husband, in order to live peacefully as a civilian. Later, Haku discovered he had inherited the same ability. In a moment of innocent excitement, he showed his mother how he could turn water into small ice crystals. His father witnessed this. Terrified by the stigma surrounding bloodline limits and feeling betrayed by his wife's secret, his father gathered villagers into a mob. They murdered Haku's mother in front of him. When his father attempted to kill him as well, Haku's survival instinct activated. He unconsciously unleashed a massive surge of ice release, killing his father and the rest of the mob with ice spikes. Orphaned and traumatized, Haku survived as a homeless beggar, rejected by a society that viewed him as a monster. Eventually, he encountered Zabuza, a rogue ninja from the Hidden Mist village. Zabuza did not offer comfort or affection. He offered purpose. Recognizing Haku's rare bloodline and talent, he agreed to take him in, but only as a tool to be used for his ambitions. Desperate to feel needed, Haku accepted without hesitation. He devoted himself to becoming the perfect shinobi for Zabuza, suppressing his naturally gentle personality to carry out violent missions. During the mission involving the bridge builder Tazuna, Haku confronted Naruto and Sasuke. Using his demonic mirroring ice crystals technique, he trapped them inside his crystal ice mirrors. His speed and precision overwhelmed them, but he deliberately avoided striking fatal points because he was reluctant to kill. When Haku launched Senbon needles at a weakened Naruto, Sasuke shielded him, seemingly dying from the attack. The shock triggered Naruto's first transformation under the influence of the Ninetales. Overpowered, Haku realized he could not win. Believing he had failed as a tool, he asked Naruto to kill him, convinced he no longer had the right to live if he could not serve Zabuza. At that moment, Haku sensed that Kakashi was about to strike Zabuza with his Chidori. Without hesitation, Haku abandoned his fight and moved in front of Zabuza, taking the Chidori through his chest. He died instantly, sacrificing himself for his master. Zabuza initially pretended that Haku's death meant nothing. However, after Naruto angrily confronted him about Haku's loyalty and love, Zabuza broke down emotionally. Despite being severely wounded, he fought through Gato's mercenaries to avenge Haku. As he lay dying, he asked to be placed beside Haku's body. Snow began to fall, symbolizing Haku's presence in his final moments. Years later, during the Fourth Shinobi World War, both Haku and Zabuza were resurrected by Kabuto using Edo Tensei. Unlike many others, they initially retained their awareness. When they realized they were being forced to fight Kakashi again, Haku was heartbroken to learn that his sacrifice had not ultimately saved Zabuza. Kakashi reassured Haku that Zabuza had not died as a heartless man who only saw him as a tool, but as someone who genuinely cared for him. That truth brought Haku peace, knowing his devotion had not been one-sided. Nagato grew up in the village hidden in the rain during the Second Great Ninja War. Because the Rain Village was located between three major nations, it constantly became a battlefield. War was not an event there, it was a way of life. During a severe food shortage, two Leaf Shinobi broke into Nagato's home, searching for supplies. His parents tried to distract them so Nagato could escape. Mistaking them for enemy combatants, the Konoha ninja killed his parents right in front of him. When they realized they had just killed civilians, they apologized, but the damage was done. The shock and trauma awakened Nagato's Rinnegan for the first time, and in a blind rage, he killed both shinobi. Left alone, Nagato wandered as an orphan until he met two other war victims, Yahiko and Konan. The three eventually encountered Jiraiya, who decided to train them. Jiraiya believed they could grow into people who would one day bring peace to their devastated homeland. Under Yahiko's leadership, they formed the original Akatsuki, an organization devoted to ending war through diplomacy and non-violent resistance. However, their growing influence threatened Hanzo, the leader of the Hidden Rain, known as Hanzo the Salamander. Fearing their power, Hanzo conspired with Danzo Shimura of Konoha to eliminate them. Hanzo lured the group into a trap and took Konan hostage. He forced Nagato into an impossible choice: kill Yahiko in exchange for Konan's life. Refusing to let Nagato bear that burden, Yahiko sacrificed himself by throwing his body onto Nagato's kunai, dying in his arms. Yahiko's death completely shattered Nagato's faith in peaceful negotiation. He came to believe that people cannot truly understand one another unless they experience the same physical and emotional pain. From that moment on, his ideology changed. Nagato summoned the Geto statue, a decision that crippled his body but granted him immense power. Using the Rinnegan, he controlled 6 corpses, including Yahiko's body, as his proxies. Taking on the name Pain, he transformed the Akatsuki into a mercenary organization. His ultimate objective was to create a weapon of mass destruction powerful enough to inflict overwhelming global trauma, forcing the world into a temporary era of peace maintained through fear. To fully understand Itachi Uchiha's tragedy, you have to start with the Ninetales attack on the Leaf Village. After the Ninetales attacked Konoha, suspicion immediately fell on the Uchiha clan because the Sharingan has the ability to control tailed beasts. The village leadership, particularly Danzo, used this suspicion to justify pushing the Uchiha to the outskirts of the village, effectively segregating them. Feeling distrusted, isolated, and politically powerless, the Uchiha began secretly planning a coup d'etat to overthrow Konoha's leadership. Itachi, however, was not an ordinary child. At just 4 years old, he witnessed the brutality of the Third Shinobi World War, which turned him into a pacifist who feared conflict above all else. Recognized as a prodigy, he was recruited into the Unbu Black Ops at a young age and became a bridge between the village and his clan. Itachi ultimately acted as a double agent. He informed the village elders about the coup while desperately searching for a peaceful solution that would avoid bloodshed. His closest friend, Shisui Uchiha, tried to stop the coup using his visual prowess, but Danzo stole one of Shisui's eyes to prevent him from interfering. With no other option, Shisui entrusted his remaining eye to Itachi and took his own life, placing the responsibility of protecting the village on his shoulders. The elders then gave Itachi an impossible ultimatum: side with the Uchiha's rebellion, which would likely trigger a civil war and invite invasion from other nations, leading to the destruction of both the Leaf Village and the Uchiha clan, including his younger brother Sasuke Uchiha, or side with the village and eliminate his own clan to prevent the uprising. In return, Sasuke's life would be spared. Itachi chose the latter. On a single night, with assistance from Obito Uchiha, Itachi carried out the massacre of the entire Uchiha clan. The most painful moment came when he killed his parents, Fugaku Uchiha and Makoto Uchiha. They did not resist. Instead, they told him they were proud of him, even as he stood behind them with his blade. To protect Sasuke and ensure he would grow strong enough to survive, Itachi accepted the role of a villain. He subjected Sasuke to Tsukuyomi, forcing him to relive the massacre in order to intensify his hatred and push him towards strength. He joined the Akatsuki as a spy, secretly ensuring the organization would not target Konoha while he was alive. All the while, he was suffering from a terminal illness. When the time came, Itachi deliberately lost his final battle to Sasuke. He exhausted himself, removed Orochimaru's influence by sealing away the cursed mark, and died by his brother's hand, exactly as he had planned. To the world, Itachi died as a traitor who slaughtered his own clan. In reality, he carried the burden of genocide, exile, illness, and his brother's hatred to the grave to preserve peace in the village and to allow Sasuke to live believing the Uchiha name had been wronged, not disgraced. Sasori grew up in the village hidden in the sand during a time of ongoing war. His parents were skilled shinobi who were sent out during the Second Great Ninja War and were killed in battle by Sakumo Hatake. Their deaths left Sasori orphaned at a very young age. With the village constantly at war, his grandmother, Chiyo, struggled to comfort him emotionally. Instead, she tried to ease his grief by teaching him the Sand Village's puppet jutsu. Sasori quickly revealed himself to be a prodigy, but the reason behind his dedication was tragic. The first puppets he ever created were modeled after his own mother and father. In one of the most haunting moments of his childhood, Sasori used chakra threads to make the puppets wrap their arms around him. But they were only wood and mechanisms. There was no warmth, no heartbeat, no love. That realization marked the beginning of his emotional detachment. Over time, Sasori's grief transformed into a nihilistic worldview. He began to resent the fragility of human life and the emotional vulnerability that came with it. To him, people were weak because they could die at any moment. He concluded that true art should be eternal, untouched by decay or loss. This belief led him to develop the forbidden technique of creating human puppets. By turning the corpses of powerful shinobi into puppets, he could preserve both their abilities and their physical forms indefinitely. Through this method, he sought to overcome the impermanence of life. Eventually, his pursuit of permanence extended to himself. Sasori converted his own body into a puppet, discarding his humanity and leaving only a small living core to operate his mechanical frame. In doing so, he symbolically and physically abandoned the human emotions that once caused him pain. His story comes full circle during his battle against Sakura Haruno and Chiyo. Despite possessing overwhelming strength and experience, Sasori ultimately allowed himself to be struck by the very first puppets he ever created, the mother and father. Chiyo observed that Sasori clearly saw the final attack coming and had the ability to evade it. The implication is that, in his final moments, he chose not to escape. Instead, he allowed himself to die in the embrace of the parent figures he had spent his entire life trying to recreate, bringing his tragedy back to where it began. Obito Uchiha began as a clear parallel to Naruto Uzumaki. He was a late bloomer within the Uchiha clan, clumsy, frequently scolded, and constantly overshadowed by his naturally gifted rival, Kakashi Hatake. Despite his shortcomings, Obito was defined by empathy. He was often late to missions because he stopped to help elderly villagers, and he openly declared his dream of becoming Hokage so the village would finally acknowledge him. He was assigned to Team Minato alongside Kakashi and Rin Nohara, the girl he loved. His life changed during the Third Shinobi World War. After Rin was captured by Hidden Stone Ninja, Obito confronted Kakashi's rigid loyalty to the mission rules. He delivered the line that defined his character: "Those who break the rules may be scum, but those who abandon their friends are worse than scum." During the rescue mission, Obito awakened his Sharingan for the first time. Moments later, a cave collapsed. To save Kakashi, Obito pushed him clear of a falling boulder, sacrificing himself as the entire right side of his body was crushed. Believing he was about to die, Obito asked Rin to transplant his left Sharingan into Kakashi as a congratulatory gift for becoming a Jonin. However, Obito did not die. He was rescued by Madara Uchiha, who kept him alive by replacing his destroyed limbs with white Zetsu matter. Obito endured rehabilitation with one goal: to return to Rin and Kakashi. But Madara carefully engineered events to shatter that hope. When Obito finally re-entered the battlefield to save his teammates, he arrived at the worst possible moment, just as Kakashi's Chidori pierced Rin's chest. Rin had been forcibly turned into a Jinchuriki by the hidden mist, and chose to die by Kakashi's hand to prevent the beast inside her from being unleashed on Konoha. From Obito's perspective, however, he saw the girl he loved killed by his best friend. The trauma triggered his Mangekyo Sharingan. Consumed by rage and despair, Obito slaughtered the surrounding mist ninja, standing in a literal lake of blood. In that moment, he concluded that the world itself was a hell, a place defined by suffering, betrayal, and loss. Broken beyond repair, he returned to Madara and committed himself to the Eye of the Moon plan. His dream shifted from protecting people in reality to rejecting reality entirely. He sought to cast the world into an infinite dream, a world where Rin was alive, war did not exist, and no one would ever have to experience the pain of loss again. Madara Uchiha is often remembered as the ultimate antagonist of Naruto, but his fall into villainy was not driven by ambition alone. It was shaped by repeated loss and a distorted desire to protect both his clan and his childhood dream. Before the hidden villages were formed, the world existed in the Warring States period, an era of constant conflict where mercenary clans were hired by feudal lords to fight endless wars. The average lifespan was extremely short, and children were sent to the battlefield as soon as they were old enough to wield weapons. The two dominant clans were the Uchiha, descendants of the Sage of Six Paths' elder son, and the Senju, descendants of the younger son. Whenever one faction hired the Uchiha, the opposing side would hire the Senju, ensuring perpetual bloodshed. As a child, Madara met Hashirama Senju by a river. Neither revealed their family names, knowing that doing so would instantly turn them into enemies. They bonded over the loss of their brothers and shared an ambitious dream: to create a village where children would not have to fight and die. Eventually, their fathers discovered the friendship and forced them into open hostility. Realizing peace was impossible at that time, Madara awakened his Sharingan and declared Hashirama his rival. Over the years, the war intensified. Madara lost 4 of his 5 brothers in battle against the Senju. The final blow came when his last surviving brother, Azuna Uchiha, was mortally wounded by Tobirama Senju. Before dying, Azuna gave Madara his eyes, allowing him to awaken the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. After a decisive battle between the clans, Hashirama offered to take his own life to finally end the cycle of revenge. This act moved Madara, and the two agreed to form a truce. Together they established the Hidden Leaf Village. However, Madara's tragedy did not end with peace. It shifted from physical warfare to emotional and political isolation. Although Hashirama wanted Madara to become the first Hokage, the village, and even many within the Uchiha clan, favored Hashirama instead. Madara began to feel sidelined and distrusted in the very system he helped create. During this period, he discovered the Uchiha Stone Tablet, which had secretly been altered by Black Zetsu. The tablet convinced him that the world was trapped in an endless cycle of hatred that could only be resolved through the infinite Tsukuyomi, a global illusion that would impose peace by removing free will and conflict. When Madara warned the Uchiha that they would eventually be marginalized under Senju leadership, his own clan rejected him, dismissing him as paranoid and power-hungry. Feeling betrayed by both his clan and his friend, Madara left the village and challenged Hashirama one final time at the Valley of the End. He was defeated and presumed dead. In reality, Madara activated Izanagi to rewrite his death and survived in secret. He spent decades hidden away, sustained by the Gato statue, and kept alive as an old, frail man. During that time, he carefully set the stage for his return by manipulating Obito Uchiha, grooming him to carry out the Eye of the Moon plan and eventually resurrect him. Madara's descent was rooted in a belief that genuine peace was impossible in the real world. After losing his brothers, his clan's trust, and ultimately his bond with Hashirama, he concluded that only an artificial dream could end humanity's suffering, no matter the cost.